To me, culture is just what people care about. It's the relationships, the family, the ancestry, the music, the entertainment, the technology that matter to people. When something matters to people, they talk about it. And when enough people are talking about the same thing, a trend is born. And when that trend has staying power, when it shows consistency and growth over time, we can see what's starting to matter more and more to people, and we can actually see culture taking shape. So hundreds of millions of these conversations happen every day on Twitter, and they're conversations driven by influential people who are the first to talk about and share things. By looking at what these people are talking about and actually studying it, we can get insight into the emerging topics that are actually influencing the zeitgeist. So our research teams at Twitter thought this was really interesting. So over the past 3 years, we've done a study looking at billions of tweets, and we took the top 3,000 hashtags from those tweets, and we categorized those into thematic areas. And then we removed more familiar cultural areas like movies and sports, things that everyone knows are happening. And we looked for areas of significant growth and fast growth, so fast evolving areas. And what we landed on was 18 cultural trends that are actually growing like crazy and show no signs of slowing down anytime soon. So we're going to dive deep into some of these trends, and to help us in that conversation, I'd like to invite Megan Elrell on stage. Megan is the head of the agency research team, global agency research team at Twitter. Oh yeah, I'll sit here. And it was her team that first had this idea of mining Twitter data to look for cultural insights. So welcome, Megan. I'd like to be Ellen if I could choose. I don't know where to put this, whatever. Okay. Okay, so like I said, you're going to see more from us in the next month, actually. We're doing a huge launch of all of these cultural insights on November 5th, so definitely look for more from us then. But we're going to cover a few today, and we have some amazing brands joining us to talk through how they have tapped into these trends and brought them to life through their creative. But I first want to start by going into the research a little bit. So Megan, I want to start by asking you, of these trends, so wait, hold on, let me cover this really quickly. So these are the 18 trends that we kind of identified, and we grouped them into thematic areas. So everything kind of related to like the environment, sustainability, and kind of what's going on in the world is under one planet, and everything related to technology is under tech life. So when you guys were finding these and doing this research, was there anything that stood out to you about the research, or any trends that you found particularly interesting?
Well, I think I was surprised by just how much is changing. We found so many areas and topics of conversation with significant growth, as you were saying, but also fundamental shifts in the context of the conversation. I'll bring this to life with 3 examples. The first is in the well-being theme. In 2016, the conversation around the body, so think things like physical fitness, going to the gym, dieting, was double that of the mind. Fast forward 3 years, and that conversation is completely reversed. The conversation around the mental well-being is now double that of the body. The second one I'll highlight is within the DIY spirituality trend. Faith has taken on a new meaning in today's culture. People are taking a more personal, flexible approach to spirituality, dipping into practices that were once considered fringe, like tarot cards and astrology, to reconnect with a deeper self and the meaning of life. The context of that conversation is shifting away from Eastern practices like yoga, Zen, chakras, and moving more towards energy and positive, nurturing messaging with words like love and protection, while also creating communities to banish bad and toxic vibes. The last example that I'll highlight is how conversation has become a force for good. Over the last 3 years, the conversation around gender has significantly increased. And over that same time period, we've seen a huge reduction in derogatory terms in relation to this conversation. And so it's actually a third of what it was in 2016. So I think it's amazing to see how a topic like this can come front and center and showcase not only the sensitivities, but the respect within that conversation. I also love seeing how conversation on Twitter is happening between people who may and may not know each other, and it allows to bubble up and showcase how culture is shifting today.
Totally. Megan and I have been working with these trends since like April before that, and we have our favorites, which is weird, but one that I love is under kind of the tech life theme. So future tech is a trend that we're seeing. People are just really excited about the possibilities for a more connected world, for more connected cities, more connected homes. But at the same time, we're seeing a lot of conversation growth around just thinking the robots are going to kill us. So that's the trend we're calling tech angst. So you see both of those growing at the same time. That's one that I just think is hilarious and awesome. So Megan, most of us here are in the advertising industry, and I think we all see like trend reports come at us like every year. What makes this data different? Like what makes this special?
Well, Twitter is a treasure trove of potential insight. I think over the years, people have called it the live real-time focus group. So with all of that conversation happening, I think there are three key things that distinguish this work that we've done and the insights that we're able to share. The first would be the starting point, or maybe lack thereof. We didn't really have a starting point. So I guess detection could be a key word here, in that we wanted to uncover insights we didn't know. With traditional methodologies like surveys, focus groups, you need a starting point. You need a question, you need a hypothesis, you need something to start from in order to get to the results. With this work, we basically pulled together all of the organic public conversation happening on Twitter and let the insights bubble up from there. So the insights we were able to glean were actually hard, maybe even impossible to uncover by any other means. The second is the time period. So we used a 3-year time period in order to get past fads, movements, reactions to key events, to really find enduring trends. So this isn't just a snapshot into what's happening. This is a longitudinal perspective into what's happening, which I think is a core differentiator here, in that we're able to showcase how culture is shifting, changing, and moving every day. And then last but not least is the Twitter data. Twitter data is extremely unique in that it's live, it's real, it's public conversation, and with billions of tweets happening every week, every month, every year, that's a lot of conversation and details to parse through to find meaningful information.
Awesome. So why is this important for brands? We also wanted to know that. So we partnered with IPG to do a study, and what we found is that almost a quarter of consumers' purchase decision is based on a brand's cultural relevance. So people will buy a product based on what they need, but they'll choose a brand based on what they value, and culture is a reflection of our values. So to help dive deep into these trends a little bit more, I want to invite some additional guests to the stage who represent brands that are really getting this right. So please welcome Amy Stepanian from Unilever and Nader Ali-Hassan from Comcast. So first, let's just start and have you introduce yourself. And oh, I forgot to click the clicker. Such a professional. Okay.
Wow, there we are.
Hey, it's your face.
Yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Amy Stepanian. I'm the marketing director on Dev and Dev Men+Care here in the US. And I've been at Unilever a little over 14 years, and 13 of those have been on Dev. So the brand runs deep in my veins, and I'm really excited to be here and talk to you a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing lately.
Hey guys, I'm Nader Ali-Hassan. I'm the Executive Director of Social Marketing at Comcast. I run all the social marketing and strategy work for the Xfinity brand, which if you live in New York, you probably don't know, but it's one of the largest cable provider, internet provider in the country. And it is, it's a blast. Like, I'm obviously really excited to be in a room with a bunch of planners because I feel like you guys are generally the smartest people in the room. But from my perspective, we obviously do a lot of work with Twitter, but we're really excited to kind of talk about some of the work that we've done as well.
Awesome. Okay, so now that we have everybody up here, we're going to spend some time really understanding a few of these trends and looking at how the brand work is connecting to them and tapping into them. So I'm going to start with a trend that we call Represent Me. It's really driven by people wanting to see themselves represented in culture, be it their beliefs, their identity, their appearance. People just really want to see a reflection of who they are and not see the same thing over and over again. So Amy, how is Unilever thinking about representation in general, and why do you think that's an important cultural trend?
Sure. Representation is incredibly important to Unilever. We're doing a lot of work with the Unstereotype Alliance, for instance. But then specifically for Dove, for our brand, it's something that is endemic to everything that we do. In fact, our research shows that 70% of women still don't feel represented in media and advertising. And that's shocking to me. And what it tells me is that for all of the progress we've made in the beauty industry, and I would say that lots of brands we've made significant progress in the last few years, women still feel invisible in what they're seeing out there. And we know that when women feel invisible and don't see themselves represented in the images that they're seeing in media and advertising, it changes the way they live their lives. So it can potentially change, for instance, like the clothes that they wear, or deciding to apply for a job, or go for a raise, or even just feel comfortable being themselves and showing their true identity. And so for us at Dove, ensuring that we're helping to make that change and helping women and young girls. We also do a lot of work on confidence, self-esteem and confidence with young women. We want to make sure that we're at the forefront of the conversation to make that change so that women and girls feel represented in media and in culture.
That's amazing. Megan, how do you see this playing out on Twitter? Because this is one of the fastest growing conversational trends on the platform.
Well, we've seen a huge increase in the conversation around diversity, equality, and inclusion and representation. The volume is actually 10x what it was in 2016. And that's including all facets of life, whether that be in the workplace, in sports and entertainment, or even just everyday encounters. And so some of the key drivers that we're seeing bubble up in this conversation is one around sports and race. We all are pretty familiar with this conversation that the NFL I guess didn't necessarily start, but have been front and center on. But it's gone beyond that. People are now they're taking to Twitter, jumping in on the conversation to showcase their opinions and why it matters and to stand up for something. The second would be around women in work. We have seen a huge amount of conversation increase within this topic, with hashtags bubbling up like women in biz, girls who code, women in STEM, and women in film. And it's been amazing to see the positive, nurturing messaging around this topic, with words like love and support coming through, and awesome, happy, amazing. And then the last one that I'll highlight is LGBTQ and transgender rights. So there have been a huge amount of keywords and hashtags and topics within this conversation that are centered around diversity, inclusivity, and equality, where diversity is not just being reflected, people are standing up to defend it. And this is particularly, people are raising issues for equality for these communities, especially in regards to the workplace. And so it's amazing to see that we are seeing increasing uses of the terms pride, love, and support enter into this conversation. So with all of that said, just to repeat that people just want to see themselves represented in culture, in media, in advertising, whether that be through appearance, identity, or beliefs.
So Dove has done a really amazing job, I think, of tapping into this, especially around women. So let's take a look at some of your recent work, and we'll discuss it. Pray this before. Holy shit.
It works.
Is everyone okay?
Girl, you're so young, but you see everything. What if we could show you a vision of beauty where no woman or girl were excluded?
Where fitness comes in all sizes.
Where all hair is professional.
Onde toda a pele é bonita.
Where we're shown exactly the same as everyone else.
Что женственность может быть сильной.
Where beauty isn't
show you a world where every woman is seen, then girl, you'll show us all.
I think it's like really important that there's at least one kid who can like see themselves in me. People have this idea that you have to be brave to be who you are.
It means so much not to be seen as different.
I'm glad that some little girl is going to see me and think, I could run that boardroom.
So what inspired this work? I mean, we talked a little bit about the importance of the trend, but what inspired this specific spot?
Sure, I would say, thinking back, so Dove is a brand that's been around for over 60 years, and really since we launched the Dove Beauty Bar in 1957, at the time, we used a real woman in that advertising, not a model or an actress. In 1957, that was very groundbreaking. And then you think, like, fast forward to 2004, we launched the campaign For Real Beauty, which sparked a cultural conversation around beauty stereotypes, but the conversation has continued to evolve. And so as a brand, we've always been committed to being on the forefront of the conversation and making sure that we're representing what reality looks like for today. And so this work, in partnership, as you saw in the film, we partnered with Getty Images, which was one of the largest providers of stock photography in the world, and Girl Gaze, which is a network of over 200,000 female and non-binary individuals who took the photographs. So it was women in front of and behind the camera. And building this photo bank to say this is what beauty looks like today and is representative of not just different shapes and sizes and colors, but disabilities and LGBTQ, and making sure that we're pushing the envelope in terms of how we're thinking about beauty and what real beauty looks like today. So we're really excited about the work. We have over 900 companies have already downloaded images and started to use it, but we want to continue to see the bank grow and get more images up there as well.
It's amazing. And then what in the creative itself, what were specific things you wanted to focus on to really bring this to life for the audience?
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is obviously our film that kind of demonstrates what we've done, but really the doing is the bigger thing here. So we're building this bank. As it said in the film, there's over 5,000 images. More already. This was launched in March of this year. So for us, it was about really how can we create a movement, and this is ongoing. And actually, it can only be successful if other brands and companies and creators get involved and participate too. So actually, if you go to dove.com/showup, women can upload their own image and their own story and be part of the conversation. And beyond that, we want to make sure that part of the reason I wanted to be here today is make sure that people know what we're doing, and that really at the end of the day, this shouldn't be a creative execution or campaign. This should become the norm. So and the Getty team has told us that, like, more and more searches are being done in this space. So for us, it's about growing the platform and making more images more accessible to more people.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement around what you're doing, and I think we can see it start to be reflected in culture and across the board. So it's amazing. Okay, so jumping to our next trend to discuss, this is one that I think is probably familiar to people. It's starting to become bigger and bigger. What?
No, I said it's like we're going from like really
No, we're going
serious
from
legal stuff to
now it's time for fluff. No, this is a huge trend. It's just as important. Called fandom. And it's basically, I think people understand this inherently, like the public devotion to pop culture idols is now becoming a part of people's identity. So like, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you're a Game of Thrones fan. People are obsessed with BTS. They consider themselves part of the BTS army or part of the Beehive. It's really starting to become a part of who people are. So Comcast has tapped into this trend, obviously, as a media company. I'd love to understand why it's important to Comcast's vision
I mean, at the end of the day, when we think about how we're reaching out to customers and how we're reaching out just in general about what our brand stands for, I think we play a role in this fandom, if only that we're as big of fans as you are about the same types of content. Whether that's stuff that you would get on the internet, whether that's stuff that you watch on E! Or HBO like Game of Thrones. Like, we have thousands of people that work at the company, myself included. We're all super fans of this stuff, and I think for us, it's how do we tap into those kind of not the big Game of Thrones is great. Everyone's talking about Game of Thrones, but how do we find the other things that people are talking about that maybe doesn't get as much love, and how do we elevate that? Whether that's a Comic-Con type situation, whether that's reality, which we'll talk a little bit about, or I mean, there's a million different kind of niches that people have that they may be they think they're the only ones that love something like Succession, right? And then they actually realize that no, that's a conversation that everybody is taking place in. And personally, I want to be involved in those conversations in my personal life, so why not bring that to my professional life as well?
Speaking of Comic-Con, raise your hand if you guys know what LARPing is. Okay. It's live action role playing. I just learned it's a big deal. People love to dress up. Like, is anyone here doing LARPing? Yes! Okay. Eating edge here. Eating edge. Love it. Don't be embarrassed. You are on trend. On trend. Megan, make her feel better. Tell us about this trend on Twitter.
It's an hour on LARPing. Let's go.
We're gonna all just strip down into costumes. There are thousands of fandoms and communities happening on Twitter every day. We've seen a huge increase in this conversation, and the whole idea around this trend is to showcase how being a fan has intensified. When we think about the conversation, the word "standing" has come up a lot. And I don't know if you guys remember that Eminem song, I think is where the Stan song, I think this might have been where it originated. Wikipedia might be wrong, but
that's right.
That's where, over the last 3 years when we looked at this conversation, we've actually seen the word standing quadruple in size. So people are being devoted, they're standing towards their idols, and they're really feeling a connection there. And it's become, like you said, a signal for identity. We're also seeing just new expressions of fandom come into play in the conversation, and some of those key highlights are with fan tourism. So people are craving the full immersive experience into their world of being a fan. Whether that's going to filming locations, maybe Comic-Con might be one of those, but going to filming locations where locations are actually catering to this demand and creating unique experiences for these fanatic fans. And so we're seeing this bubble up into the conversation. Croatia and Dubrovnik, in relation to Game of Thrones, has just skyrocketed in the conversation. Obviously with the finale, this has been huge, but it's amazing to see how the experience is going beyond just everyday TV viewing. The second would be around fan empowerment. So fans are embracing the messaging that their idols are putting out into the world, and they're actually taking that and feeling empowered to stand up and make a difference and stand for something they believe in. And the last one is fan armies. Like you said before, fan armies, it's true. It's actually become a competition of sorts. There's hashtags like Fan Army Face Off and Best Fan Army, where you can actually win awards for being the best fan. And fans are desperate to win these awards. But not only within these fan armies, there's also a sense of community. There's a way to bring them all together where you have, like you were saying with Beyonce's Bayhive, they're intense, don't mess with their Bayhive, and then BTS's BTS Army. Most idols have their kind of army followings at this point, but you get it not only from the music industry, but even reality TV is has a huge intense following where people are following shows like Real Housewives, Love Island, The Bachelor, and they are not only just TV viewing, they are in for the full immersive experience on Twitter and beyond.
What a great segue, Megan. That wasn't planned at all. Let's take a look at how Comcast has tapped into this immersive fan base.
31% of US bars are sports bars, which makes sense because sports is the most popular thing on television, except it's not. Reality TV is. So why isn't there anywhere for reality fans?
That is like major
injustice to me. Major.
Introducing Reality Bar, the world's first bar designed for reality TV fans, from Xfinity, one of the largest entertainment providers in America. We started by taking over a normal sports bar and making a few renovations.
By a little, I mean a lot.
First, we swapped the beer for rosé, obviously. Bricks and wood for velvet and fur. Football photos for reality quotes. Fight nights for fight nights. And some helmet no one cares about for the frickin' duck phone from Jersey Shore. The actual duck phone. Then we opened the doors right in time for the Super Bowl. No, our Super Bowl. The Bachelor premiere. But opening the bar was only the beginning. We partnered with reality TV's biggest networks, brands, and content creators to invite 28 of the most popular stars. Everything they did and said
I literally wish death on all of them.
became content for Twitter Live, Instagram, YouTube, and a cross-platform content hub we created for Xfinity's 30 million cable customers. We even partnered with the biggest Bachelor podcast to create a special live episode, and gave fans and influencers all of the things to make their own content. The results spoke for themselves. More importantly, what did reality fans think? Well, they loved it. Not only did we create a space for millions of overlooked reality fans, we proved without a doubt that Xfinity truly is the home of reality TV.
People say we have no talent. How dare they?
I feel really weird going.
Honestly, goosebumps, guys. Tell us how you identify this as an important space, this reality TV fandom.
Oh man, everyone on my team was yelling at me about why don't we do something on reality TV? I actually asked a question. What do you guys think the most watched thing on television live is? Sports, right? Mm-hmm. It's actually shocking. It's reality TV by a 2-to-1 margin. More people watch reality TV live and talk about it than anything that we have on our system. So when we thought, that was kind of the insight that started it, and we were, what about reality TV? Because in my house, it's Real Housewives, and, some people no one really gets excited. No one really gets excited about the guy didn't pick number 2 in International House Hunters, right? There's a lot of dumb joke. I'm sorry, but it's true. No one really cares about that stuff, but they really care about The Bachelor and Housewives and all that stuff. So we started this, when we did this last year, it was kind of a big test balloon for us. We wanted to put out content around reality TV. We worked with our agency in San Francisco, Good View Silver State Partners, and came up with this notion of, let's take this bar, which the video's about. We actually made an entire week of content on X1, and it was all about reality TV. And the reason is that, yes, we know people are watching it, but we know people are talking about it. And they honestly don't shut up about it. Not either in the office, if you just walk around and listen to people. That's always the conversation every day. But even on Twitter, on Instagram, there's so many conversations happening. So it just seemed like a really logical place for us. But for me, it wasn't about just having the celebrities come. It was tapping into the community outside of that, right? So we all listen to podcasts. That's where the information's coming from. That's where opinions are really being generated about the show that they're watching. Because that's the start of it, right? You watch the show, you want to get the recap right as soon as it's after. We brought those people in and really created a week's worth of content that performed really, really well. We're really excited about it.
Amazing. What were the elements that you kind of added into that experience to really make it immersive and get people excited?
Well, it's hard because you want to build an experience for the people there on the ground, but it's really about the millions of people that are going to watch the videos online, right? So when you work with a creative agency, sometimes they're very much focused on the bar and not so much on the digital content. We work through that a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, they would probably not kill me for saying that. No, but at the end of the day, I think the room itself was great. You guys saw a lot of it, right? We completely flipped this dingy sports bar into this there was serving rosé and champagne, and the drinks were customized, and you could actually play with the duck phone, and you could meet a lot of the stars. But the content that came in as well was bringing betches, bringing all these different kind of subgroups to do podcasts, to live filmings from there. We shot live content every day there for 5 days. And I mean, like I said, people were eating it up and watching it. Wow, you know, as soon as the Bachelor season premiere started last year, we were live with a recap show talking about what people just saw, which was like 3 hours of people talking about the Bachelor premiere. But it was good, and people like the fan. I'm not, admittedly, not a giant reality TV fan, but the people who are ate it up, and that's exactly who we targeted the media for, and exactly who we're reaching out to.
Yeah, people love that stuff.
Yep.
Cool. I want to open it up to you guys to see if you have any questions either about the trends and research or about the work that Comcast and Dove are doing. Anybody have questions? I love this part. Hey! You might have to shout.
Yeah.
I'll repeat it though.
A question for Amy.
Yeah.
Have you gotten pushback from any of your target audience on using images of people who don't subscribe to the normal images of beauty?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of opinions out there, and we're open to all, like, particularly, I mean, in the world of social media, like, we're very engaged with our audience, and some people, you know, feel differently than we do about how expansive we can be with representing beauty, but I think that we embrace and discuss with whoever wants to engage with us on it. I would say in the majority of it has been really positive. I mean, like, most people see it and think like, oh wow. And even when I started, when we were putting the ideas together, it's like, why isn't this the way it is? You know, so I think it's really more about opening eyes to what reality looks like. So we're talking about reality to me. This is also like the reality of beauty, and it's been really well received.
Any other questions? Yes.
So for either one of you, I don't know how long these have been out there. Have you seen results, you know, from either sales with Dove or more subscribers, like anything tangible, or is it still too early? Or even from a perception standpoint, you know, brand?
We've gotten results pretty quick. So I'm trying to think what I can share and what I can't share. Generally, so we've got from the Twitter live, like just kind of high level metrics. 16 million people watched what we put out there over 4 days. So then, because we work for a cable company, TV ratings are a big deal. That was bigger than most cable broadcast. I think we actually, the same week that our reality week went up, Lindsay Lohan launched that awesome reality show from her like beach bar in Mykonos or something. That day, our Twitter content got 4.3 million views, and the total rating for MTV on that day plus 3, so that's how we measure these things, was like 600,000, right? So our bosses were quite happy. But the other part of it that we do all this work, and the reason why it's valuable for us too is, you know, brand sense, everything you would imagine would go up. We targeted to the fans really liked it, but we also leverage this stuff. We try to remarket folks afterwards as well. Like, hey, if you watch this, would you like to sign up? If you're a customer, would you like to upgrade? If you're not, would you like to potentially sign up? And we saw spikes in those specific areas, both with folks that we know watch and engage that we can remarket, or folks that we would just put a segmented message through. They both performed well above benchmark. We're doing, and really the key success for me is, would you do it again? And we're actually in the midst of planning Reality Week 2.0. And actually looking at the insights and how they've changed year over year is actually really interesting. And that's kind of how we're in the midst of kind of developing that right now, but it's definitely happening. It's becoming a big enough thing for us as like the small social media team that this is permeating the entire company, and it's really becoming a much larger initiative, which is great. Yeah, thank you.
From a Dove perspective, so we launched this image bank, the show's image bank in March. So it's pretty early still, but as I said, like 900 companies have already engaged, and that was even just a few weeks ago, so there's probably more. And we just want to continue to grow the usership of it, and what we hear from consumers certainly is they love the work that this is a long-standing commitment on the brand, so this is probably the most recent iteration of it, but it's a healthy and growing brand. I think a lot of that is due to the purpose work that we do in this space of beauty, inclusivity, and self-esteem. So we're proud for it.
Any other questions? Yes.
I was struck by, in a lot of the themes, they seem like quite individual focused. Like people are trying to navigate their own spirituality or their own role in sustainability or ethics, how much do you think that individual focus is representative of culture in general versus is it because like Twitter might have more of a, it might be a place where people are more likely to speak from an individual focus?
Go ahead, I have thoughts too, but yeah.
So
I have thoughts.
I'll share the data-led thoughts.
Yeah. I'll share my own which is not backed by
No, didn't mean it myself. Anyway, so we actually did a survey, a national representative survey, to ensure that they're not just Twitter-specific trends, that they are representative of the larger population. I do think that Twitter brings about a more vocal opportunity to share more and that people are more open to having that public conversation. So I do think it allows people to be more individual in sharing how they feel themselves. But we did find from the survey results that they are representative, especially for these smaller emerging trends. We wanted to just make sure that they weren't Twitter specific.
And I think what I was going to say in general is if you think about culture as it's how people experience the world, right? And what's important to them. So they're naturally going to talk about that in context of what they're experiencing, right? There are, however, a couple of trends that we found that were maybe not quite as individual. So one being clean corporations. So if you look under One Planet, sustainable steps is a trend that's all about people talking about the everyday steps they're taking to live more sustainable lives and help protect the planet. Clean corporations is almost the opposite of that, where people are holding businesses and brands and corporations accountable for their own environmental practices. So it is broader than just people identifying only individually. Another one that I really love actually under creator culture is connecting through video, which is people finding ways, it's like the hashtag challenges or sharing TikTok videos. Like these communities are popping up around people being able to connect with one another and almost come together through using video. So that's one that's really kind of a broad, it's like a community-based trend more than individual. That's my thought, not based on data. Sorry. Any other questions? Cool. Okay, so we can end. Just to let you guys know, we are releasing a ton of stuff on all of these trends. It's going live November 5th. You can come to marketing.twitter.com/trends, and we have a data visualization website where you'll be able to go and learn about all of these, see the growth charts, see the hashtags, play around with them, explore, learn everything, and yeah, that's that. So thanks so much for coming. Appreciate it.